Hello there. Welcome to the Pruskop Podcast. My name is Megan Prusko, and I'm a residential and multifamily realtor here in Edmonton, Alberta. Today, we're going to be talking to a very special guest whose name is Luke Paron. He is a client of mine who's starting to do something very different, which I've never spoken to anybody about before, which is investing in the States as a wholesaler, even though he's a Canadian citizen. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Well, hello, Luke. Welcome to the Pruskop Podcast. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Right on. It's good to see you, Megan.
Yeah, you're actually a very, very special guest. You were the first person who has reached out to me because of my podcast before, and we ended up working together, and I helped you sell a place, and that's just so cool that it's now full circle, and you're actually on one of my episodes with me.
Yeah, it's funny how that all worked out.
I'm super glad. Yeah, so this episode, we're going to be talking about what you're currently doing that you just started doing, which is wholesaling in the US, even though you're a Canadian citizen. I haven't spoken to anybody who's done this before, so I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about it and what you've learned so far since it's still all fresh in your brain.
Yeah, there's lots. There's lots.
Oh, yay, I'm excited. Awesome. Well, I want to start with what is your background, your career background?
So mostly construction. When I was really young, it was, residential construction where I grew up. And then I got into the oil field for on and off the last 20 years. And then, so yeah, all along, when I was young doing the residential construction stuff, I always wanted to get my own place and do my own renos and everything. So eventually, when I started making enough money, I just started doing it on the side. And then it's just snowballed into where I am today over a long period of time, probably the last 12 years.
So it was pretty natural for you to start investing in real estate because that's kind of how you were making money before, just on the labor side, and then you started to go in towards the investor side as well, and almost double dipping what you can get there in the real estate industry.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I was very hands-on. It was kind of a supplement to my work, to my career, a lot of just hands-on flipping, house hacking, you could say, for a long time. I probably did that for way too long. It was probably counterproductive for me at some point. But yeah, I wanted to make the switch into more of an investor mindset and operating that way.
And you
And
and
it just
your
happens.
wife Kelsey, you have a place in the shoe swaps. That's an Airbnb that you pretty much bird, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm here right now. Actually, yeah. Yeah. And that is what happened. It was a burr. And I used that strategy quite a bit along the way,
Mm.
for sure.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so cool. So you've been dabbling for quite some time, and now you're just taking it one step further.
Yeah. A big step further.
Yeah, for sure. So, right before you started doing this, you were really interested in purchasing a multifamily building through MLI Select with me, and then you're like, I don't know if this is the right place to put my money, which is totally fair. I am curious though, what made you decide to be interested in the United States real estate over Canadian real estate?
It was more that I kind of wanted to start more of a business as an investor.
Mm.
So I wanted to get rid of some of my longer term hold stuff. And those MLI things are long amortizations. So I was kind of going in one direction, but thinking in the other direction. And so um yeah, that was kind of it. So I wanted to form more of a an investor type of business where I could not liquidate everything, but I could actually run a flipping business or get into wholesaling, which isn't something that's as common in Canada.
Hmm. And for people that don't know what wholesaling is, can you give a very elementary explanation of how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, if you can source a discount property, there's a bunch of ways you can do that. But if you can source a discount property and then get it at the right price, which there's, a formula that you should follow, or you should set your own metrics and get it at a price. Um, you can then give a contract to a seller that is assignable to another person. So you could assign that contract to another buyer and they can complete the transaction. And you're just, I guess you could say you're in the middle, and the title company will deal with all of that through escrow, which are more American words to say a title company and escrow, but same thing as here.
So you're not actually buying that property from the seller then, right?
Um, yes, in some cases you would. There's if you're doing like a novation or what people would call a double close, then you wouldn't actually buy it. But um, yes, you would be purchasing it and you would be uh, taking title for a flip. But if you're right, if you're just doing strictly a wholesale, then no, you would actually never actually purchase the property or even have your name on title.
So, as a really simple overview or example, let's say that I find a property that I could get for 300,000, that the market value is 500,000, and the sellers are willing to sell because of some form of distress that they're under. So then I get the property under contract for 300,000, and then I put my, oh, what's that called? You just said the
An assignment fee.
assignment fee on top of that. Let's say my assignment fee is 15 grand. I'm just making that up. So then I
Mhm.
find a buyer and I'm like, "Hey, you can buy this 500,000 property for 315,000. Would you like it?" So then I get 15K out of it. I'm not actually buying the thing. The seller still gets their 300K and the buyer is still getting a wicked deal as well.
Exactly. And
Okay.
typically that would probably be a flipper, would be your end buyer, somebody who is looking to flip the property. Yeah.
Mhm. Awesome. So, from a numbers perspective, what stood out to you between the US and Canadian markets? Like, why are you interested in flipping in the US or sorry, flipping paper in the US versus in Canada?
I think just the amount of opportunities and the diversity in the price down there, like you can find properties that are, well, I have a property on contract for 50,000 US dollars
What?
today.
That's
Yeah.
it? What would that be,
Yeah.
like 80-ish Canadian?
Yeah, somewhere around, or I think it would be more like 65 right now. 65 Canadian right about now.
What kind of property is
So
it?
it's just a little condo. So it's a small condo, two beds, one bath. It needs work. There's no
Mhm.
doubt. But yeah, super super cheap little spot, and it might even be a little spot for me, a little landing pad for me for getting down there.
Crash pad? Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm wondering because a lot of people are interested in investing in the States here as a Canadian, but how does that work with taxes, with registering a business? Obviously, you're a Canadian resident, so how did you get, I'm assuming you got an American business. Where do you even
Mhm.
start? What does that look like?
It's definitely a process, and you definitely want to get some help and lots of advice doing it. Basically, I registered some business in Florida. So, you just at the state level, there's in Florida, it's called sunbiz.org is their website. It's a lot like Canada. You register, a business here. You would register a business in Alberta or in BC, at the provincial level. So down there, you register your businesses in Florida, and then you get once they're registered, then you can send off for a EIN number for those businesses,
What's
which then makes
EIN?
them that's like a social insurance number for the business that makes it visible to the IRS so that you can be taxed. And once you get your EIN numbers back, then you can look at opening up business bank accounts. And you can then also go one step further and you get an ITIN number, ITIN. And so that's more or less to make you personally visible as well to the IRS. But it's not a social security number. So you still can't collect income and be taxed as a US citizen. So you're still going to be taxed as a Canadian. So your businesses can make money and
Hmm.
they can, collect revenue. You can have that in US bank accounts, but if you spend it, you'll be taxed as a Canadian. So there is some
So
structure.
let's say that $15,000 profit example. So, okay, the deal's been assigned, the property is closed, $15,000 is wired from the lawyer over into your registered US bank account. Now what happens? What happens to that money?
Hmm. So just like here, you would have to just file corporate tax at the end of the year and you would have to pay tax on that. So then I haven't taken money and spent it as a Canadian citizen yet. So I haven't paid tax through the Canadian US tax treaty,
Mm,
but that's what exists is the Canada US tax treaty. And if you structure your businesses correctly, then any tax that you pay as a Canadian citizen on that money that came from the US,
Hmm.
the tax that you paid in the US will be deducted from your tax in Canada.
Okay. So they
Yeah,
do, so you are paying taxes to the States and to Canada, but what you pay in the States is deducted from what you will be paying in Canada?
exactly.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm learning things.
Yeah.
Um, what is something that came up when you were registering the business or finding properties that you're like, whoa, this is completely different than how I thought this was going to work?
Um, I think just how helpful and how much it just seems to be a lot easier to deal with like the government at a state level down there for sure. Just setting up
Hmm.
the businesses when you run into roadblocks, you can, there's somebody on the other end of the phone trying to help you set up your business. So it's just a lot. It was a lot easier to do. I found that. Um, Off the top of my head, nothing else really strikes me too much that was out of the ordinary. I mean, it's all kind of the same. It's just different words for everything, you know, different people. So
Have you only purchased or transacted in that one state so far?
yes,
Would you
I
need
did.
to be, let's say you found a wicked deal in Texas, would you have to create a separate Texas business or could you transact through your current corporation even though it's in a different state?
Yeah, you have to register with that state. Um,
Oh,
there
okay.
is there is something where I think you can still do it, but and I'm not a tax expert, but you can still do it, but then you have to sort that out later on, and it's costly. That'd be the best way that I could describe it. But you are supposed to register in that state to do business in that state.
So it's not like a blanket corporation for all of the states, it's just for that one state that you registered in.
Yeah. I mean, there could be a corporate structure where you can do it that I don't know about, but mine's very simplistic because well, for one, I'm starting, and two, I don't want to color outside the lines by accident of the tax treaties. That's very important. So,
Keep it simple.
yeah,
So with these properties, I think you've done what, two or three now officially? Two or
yeah,
three
yeah,
transactions?
yeah. The third one would be hopefully today.
How did you find these deals? Like you're not, you have visited the States, but it's not like you're door knocking and talking to potential sellers. So where are these coming from?
Yeah, so well, for one is meta ads. That's one very useful one. I know in Canada, like I haven't ran a wholesale business in Canada, but I know that that's how a lot of people are doing it here because then you get people kind of coming to you on Facebook interested in selling. But another one that's very popular in the US is you can hire cold calling to be done for you because there's the Freedom of Information Act down there, and there's many websites where you can pull records of people that are, potentially in foreclosures and they're facing foreclosure. They've been on the market for a long time and they need a way out. So divorces, all kinds of stuff. You can source records and then submit those to a cold calling company for a fee that's not exactly cheap, and they will call and call and call, and they'll do all the cold calling because that's the dirty work, and then they can submit people that they've spoken to who are interested in selling to you, and then you can take it from there. So that's another source. Then there's texting. So there's many. I mean, you can go to probate lawyers. You can source deals from many places down there, and it flows a lot more freely because of the information is free, and you can.
I've heard that it's a lot easier to find information down in the States with regards to real estate than Canada. Here, it's really hard to find, like anybody can pull a title for $10 here in Alberta, but it doesn't really tell you much. And
Mhm.
yeah, you can't find like the contact information. It'll give you the name of the registrant on titles, so the owner, and the address of them, I believe, but it won't give you like how to reach out to them. So even if I found like typically these wholesaling properties will be one in really rough shape. So if I found a really rough shape property and I have a good feeling that maybe those people are looking to sell, the only way I can get in contact with them is hopefully if they're living there and I knock on the door. But if they have a tenant
Mhm.
living there, how do I get a hold of them? You can't, right? I also
Hmm.
think with wholesaling, before I was educated about it, I also thought like 'cause wholesalers are the people that have like the houses for cash signs on the side of the road. And I always thought that was kind of iffy and that maybe they're taking advantage of people. But can you shed some light on the stories of these sellers and how it's not you taking advantage of them and what that situation actually looks like behind closed doors?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely I know what you mean, it gets viewed as predatory, and I kind of looked at it that way too. But yeah, I mean, these people are they're people that have been on the market for, 200, 300 days. They've had failed listings, they've tried to sell and they're just in trouble. And they're gonna face foreclosure, bankruptcy. And from what I understand, it's quite a bit different in the US. It doesn't really matter if you are, if you're grandma, if you're behind, you're out. I mean, it seems like here in Canada with the five banks that we typically deal with, you can do a lot of things to remortgage, reamortize, or they'll do a lot of stuff with you. But down there, it's definitely make your payments or you're in trouble. So yeah.
And I could be wrong about the US foreclosure, but here in Edmonton or here in Alberta, when there's a foreclosure on the property, it's not necessarily the bid start at zero and you work your way up. Not at all. What will happen is an appraiser will appraise the property and say, well, the fair market value of this house is $350,000, making that up. And that's what it'll be listed on the market for. Whereas a lot of people automatically think since it's a foreclosure, it must be a wicked sweet deal, but that's really not the case. And when I speak
Mhm.
to agents who represent whole or who represent these foreclosure properties, they actually find it really difficult to sell them because they know typically they are in rougher shape as well, and they have to go through a lawyer who is also representing the property in order to get approval to reduce the price to make it more attractive for it to actually move. So that I think is a really big misconception here, at least in Alberta, of like, oh, it's a foreclosure, so it must be like super, super cheap. No, it's not. Whereas I do believe in the States that it is pretty much starting at like a super cheap dirt price and it goes to whatever the highest bidder is.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that foreclosure auctions are like that, and that's one avenue I haven't explored. Um, but I do know that most people are working around the same metrics, as wholesalers. Usually those offers will be around the same area. But like you say, I mean, to, get a property at a low enough price to actually do a flip and actually make money, because you have to make money. It has to be a pretty low price, a
Hmm.
lot lower than people think. So it's definitely shocking to a lot of people. But there is a lot of other stuff that's very popular in the US. You can do seller financing here in Canada or seller take back, or it's called lots of different things. But in the US, you can get into lots of creative financing options that you can actually do with sellers. Um,
And
and you
can
can,
you explain what seller financing is and how that might work on a deal?
yeah. So typically that's if someone has very high equity or just no debt. If they own a property outright, then that's somebody that you would try to get a seller financing note with them. So there is no debt and you're just creating debt with them. So down there you use a promissory note. I haven't done it here, so I actually don't know how that works legally, but you just create a promissory note and then you take title, and then it's you just agree to the payments with them.
Yeah, I've been told from lawyers up here, at least it might be different in the States, but I've heard promissory notes are, you got to be really wary of that. So promissory notes aren't actually attached to anything, like there's no collateral. So up here, typically with seller financing, as you said, if there's a lot of equity or the property is completely paid off, let's say it's worth 500,000, I, the buyer, can't get a loan through a typical A lender for whichever reason. So instead of going to a lender, I go to the seller and I say, hey, how about you be the bank for me? I'll give you 20% down. We can discuss the interest rate, the term, and the payment amount. And then at the end of that term that we agree on, that's when you'll get your full payout. So that way you can save on some fees, especially in the commercial world. You won't have to pay lender fees or as much lawyer fees. So yeah, that's something really interesting. And I do know of some people who will use that and they'll rent out the property as it's seller financed. And just like with a normal cash flowing property, if you're making more or you're netting more than what you owe for the debt servicing, then you can technically have the property for free in a way where it just
Hmm.
carries itself in profits, which is really, really neat. I'm sure you'll get into those deals down there as well. And that's good for the seller because they can stretch their dollar. They're the one who is getting the benefit of the interest payments. So even though we agreed on 500K, they're actually going to get more than that because of the interest I would be paying to them as well.
Absolutely. And there's even tax benefits too, to people
Yes.
taking a seller finance. So,
Yeah, I've heard that particularly with like businesses, so like doctors and stuff. If you just pay them outright, like when you buy a normal house, just a lump sum payment, then all of that gains they're receiving in 1 year in one payment, and they can be taxed pretty harsh because that'll be such a high payment or income that they're earning. Whereas if you break it over like 5 years, then they aren't going so high up in the tax bracket, and I can actually save them money there too and be beneficial for them, which is really neat.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you have these properties. So you find a property for a good deal, you get it under contract with the seller. Now, what do you do? How do you find buyers? How do you price it accordingly? How do you determine what your assignment fee should be?
Hmm. Okay, yeah. So one of them was a land deal. And, basically with land, um, that's a whole nother thing. Honestly, I tried to do too much stuff at once, so I'm backing away from doing land deals, but I got into one anyways. And um, basically, most people aren't really motivated to sell land. They're not just running, I need to sell my land. I'm gonna lose every like, they're okay. So I mean, you are making offers that are, 60, 50 cents on the dollar. And so if you lock one of those up, then basically the way that I had executed the one was just it was a cheap enough property that I just paid for it in full and then turned around. I paid to have mulcher go to the property and just clear a little bit of brush and made it a little more presentable and then sold it.
How did you sell it though? Did you post a Facebook ad? Like, what did you do to sell it?
Oh, I just listed it.
So you found a realtor down in the States who listed it on their MLS system?
Exactly.
Oh, are there fees? May I ask, how much do they charge for commission?
That one was high because it was such a cheap property and I was
Oh,
kind of new, so it was 7%
how
was the
much?
fee. So
So on that land deal, what did you buy it for? And then what did you sell it for? And then what did you net?
mhm. So that one I got it on contract for 29 or sorry 19 and listed it for 32 and then sold it for 28.
And then after selling it for 28, what did the fees look like to get you to your net?
The closing cost was, well, it was 8% of the realtor fee, and then I paid that mulcher $700 to go there the one day I mulched the property, and then I bought it outright, so I didn't have any carrying costs for any financing or anything like that. So I can't remember what the exact number was I ended up with. Um, Probably should have wrote this stuff down before.
No, that's so good.
I think it was something like 5 or 6 thousand.
And what did the timeline look like with that?
That took all in just under 60 days.
Wow. So you made like 5 or 6K in under 60 days, and you
Yeah,
never physically went down there at all. You were still in Canada that whole time?
yeah, yeah. And so that the realtor that I dealt with, I had formed a relationship with her.
Hmm.
Um, because the leads that I do talk to, there's so many people that just don't want to talk to you. They they
Hmm.
they say no right away. So people that are dead leads, I would give to this realtor and just form a relationship. So she was getting, I don't know if she actually ever got any contracts from any of those, but so, that's kind of, she was willing to work with me for those reasons. And then, yeah, so she was able to go there and view the property for me is where I'm going with that. She was to go there and then, being the first one that I did, I definitely wanted some second opinion.
Hmm.
She actually was a little unsure if it was a good idea or not, but I did it anyways. And so it did work out. She was worried that it wasn't going to sell very fast, But
Mm.
having
And with these wholesaling deals, like you only bought this for 19K and you made, let's say, five conservatively. That's
mhm,
what, 25, over 25% return
yeah,
in under
yeah, it's
60 days? Like when you think of it in the percentage metric, that is, because this was a very cheap property,
yeah,
25% return in 60 days. That's
absolutely.
fantastic. What was
Yeah.
something you were stressing about when this property was listed? Like, was it just it's not going to sell, or were you worried people could, go wreck the property in some way, or
Honestly, it was mostly just because it was in a floodplain. And but in
it was
Florida, you're
in a floodplain?
in a yeah, I was in a 100-year floodplain. It wasn't in a wetland. Like that's the thing you got to really watch with the land is
Hmm.
if it's in a wetland, absolutely not. You don't even want to go near that unless you're a builder. Um, but floodplains you can get away with if everybody else is in a floodplain. But if you're just the only guy in a floodplain in the middle of nowhere, not a good
And
idea.
that, I'm assuming the name just is what it is. So it's like, if there were to be a large amount of water, then that area would most likely be flooded. There are higher chances of being flooded.
Yeah, it was a 100-year floodplain, and then there's a 50-year floodplain. So it was in a 100-year floodplain. I mean, a lot of properties you look at that are in Florida, it's there's
Yeah.
water everywhere. So there's lots of areas where everybody's in the floodplain and they're lake properties, you know? So
Speaking of which, why the heck did you pick Florida out of all, what, 51 states? Why Florida?
that's a good question. Um, I like the weather. However, I still haven't experienced the full summer heat yet. So we'll see. We'll see if I actually like that or not. But compared to Arizona, I went to Arizona. I traveled around a few different places and checked out some things because it was more about lifestyle for me than anything. And Arizona was smoking hot in the summer. But I like the trees. I like the palm. You know, it feels like Mexico when you're down there, like St. Petersburg area. If you look on a map, that's kind of where I want to end up. And yeah, the beaches there, it just feels like you're in Mexico.
I've never been there. I've only been in Arizona. So yeah, I would
Mhm.
love to go check out Florida for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely hot. I was sticking out like a sore thumb because we kind of roll
So
our windows
pale.
down here. Well, that and you when you're everyone's driving around with their windows up, it's everyone's on AC. Because I mean, here you can roll your window down in the summertime, and sometimes it's different than the AC, but down there, it's you roll the window down, it's just more hot air. It's
It's like
not,
an easy bake oven.
oh, exactly. It feels like you open the oven in the kitchen and the hot air is coming at you. It's very hot.
So I assume you're going to be dabbling more in Florida since that's where your business is registered. But is there a secondary state that you're looking to grow into as well?
Yeah, I kind of am looking at going back up north a bit, up into Georgia, just because Florida is very busy. It is very busy. There's a lot of things I've been reading about the GDP and the growth in Florida is just skyrocketing right now. So there's a lot of people doing business there. Um, so I was thinking about that, going to a slower region, just mostly because you pay quite a bit of money for lead generation, and then when you speak to people on the phone, you can tell that they've already talked to 10 people that day. Some people, and
Fed up.
there's a yeah, there's a lot of people trying to play the game. So
Our neighbors to the south there, Montana, did you ever take a stroll through there and consider them?
I think I might have drove through when I left through. That's just south out at Alberta, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
south of us.
yeah. I kind of flew right through there on the way down, but they're close though.
That's what I'm thinking. They're close and they also have like beautiful Rocky Mountains, right? So, yeah,
Hmm.
they're very similar to us, except they're a little bit warmer, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of investors are talking about going down to the States, especially Texas these past 2 years have been very, very popular, especially in multifamily. Texas has just been booming. Florida was a little bit light, I would say, in like the past 5 years, and now I'm hearing of people getting back into there. I think from what I've heard, the property prices were just hyperinflated, which makes sense. All the tech guys are over there, and that's why there's so much money and so much business happening over there. But now more and more opportunities are coming there. I also believe that Florida is a really big, like, retirement state, isn't it? where a ton of
Hmm.
people go to retire. So, yeah, somebody I was talking to said that they were looking to purchase a care home down in Florida because they could project the numbers were going to be very, very healthy.
Yeah, I could see it for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people from everywhere going there right now. I mean, I'm going there, so all the way
So
from Canada. So
what does this look like moving forward? So you've done two or three deals. Yeah, three deals now. You're on your third. So what
mhm.
does this look like as you grow? What is your plan moving forward?
Well, the original plan was to get into doing flips because I have more of a construction background. I'm pretty comfortable with that. A lot of people aren't.
Mm,
So that was the original goal. But because I kind of started this business and I was coming out of a career, the wholesaling is just quick and easy. Like you can make money doing it. I mean, there's people that have whole teams doing wholesaling. They have whole teams of people on the phones. So the competition is stiff, but you can get it done. But if you get into things like, flipping or um multifamily as well, but the flipping, that's where I wanted to head with it for now.
And I think that loops back to one of the first things you said, where your career background and where it's going. I think the summary is you're looking to replace your like labor job with active income through real estate rather than going through the MLI Select program, which would be passive income and smaller income over time. So you're really trying to shift and get your money moving now quicker and trying to build up that nest egg so that you can play bigger games down the line.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly it. And I did think that I was going to have to, come up with a lot of my own capital to do a lot of this stuff, but it turns out that you really don't, because I was under the impression that borrowing was going to be a problem. But it really isn't. I mean, you can just go and get there's brokers everywhere, and you can get a loan as a Canadian, no problem. The rates are slightly higher, but there's no problem borrowing.
When you're wholesaling though, do you even need a loan? Like, wouldn't you only need 5 or 10K for a deposit?
Exactly, yeah. And a lot of the time, you don't even need any deposit or earnest money. People like to
What?
say, yeah. I mean, you can just outright refuse to, and you just put it, as long as long if they're okay with it, they're okay with it. So
So, as long as the seller agrees, you could absolutely secure a property with 0% down.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
heard of that very rarely in VTB. It is possible. Like anything's possible. Anything's legal so long as the buyer and seller agree. So you can do VTBs with 0% down, or also known as seller financing, but you could flip paper on a property with literally no money as long as you had the right
Hmm.
connections and the right speed.
Yeah, I mean, you could go to the websites where you can source records, and you could
Mm,
sift through the records yourself, and you could do the cold calling yourself, and you could. That would be a lot of work
hmm
to get a deal. You'd be very busy. But yeah, you could. Some people do demand earnest money down.
hmm
Um, I had one deal, it didn't work out anyways, but they had demanded it, and then they were actually demanding it outside of escrow, which I was like, no, they wanted me to just give them $1,000 to sign the contract, and I'm like, okay, I don't think so, but you know, so yeah, lots of
So,
funny
when
situations.
you were finding these properties, what sold you on them or what made you feel comfortable or more comfortable with them than, because I'm sure there had to have been some that you turned down. You're like, I don't know if this would work.
Yeah, well, just doing my own comping on them is, eventually you feel comfortable. Like an example is I had one, and using professionals, like I had one, it didn't work out. They wanted to sell it very quickly. It was actually a realtor that had contacted me through Meta ads.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it was on the market for a very long time. I did make an offer with them, and then they were the ones that were demanding money outside of escrow for one. And then so I'd comped the property when I thought it would work out. And then when I actually had a realtor that was local to the area and I was still new to these areas, go there and look at it, they said, no way, you're way out to lunch. Like you won't, that deal's not going to work for you. So I had to leave it.
So that's good. You actually had agents that were looking out for you, not just for your commission that you could pay them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
That's fantastic. Like
That
you'll
is the
hear it
biggest
in
thing.
the real estate industry, no matter where you're investing. It all comes down to what kind of team you have because you cannot do all of it entirely on your own if you want to scale, especially.
Hmm. Yeah, you need people on the whole back end of it because you can start a business like this, and I did exactly this. I went in head first. I had contracts, I had all this stuff going on, and then I was trying to deal with title companies and deal with the sellers. You know, I haven't had to be a real estate agent like you, Megan, and deal with all these phone calls and people constantly. And then you also have the job of being on the phone, finding more leads, and you can't do all that. So I failed my way into it, and I found out that that's the my limitations were actually right there. Like it's my job to just find the leads, call the sellers, make an agreement. And then I now have a transaction coordinator, somebody that I met through a networking group. And as soon as I have a deal, it's just she will deal with all of that stuff. So, and a realtor, because there's a lot of realtors that are friendly with wholesalers or investors because they understand that, if you form a relationship with them, then you can give them deals that are no good to you and send them a lot of business. And then, they'll go look at properties for you and do things for you. So,
I like that you said you failed your way into it. I think that's how just life goes. You fail your way through through life more or
yeah.
less and figure it out along the way. So I want to go over your deals. So we had that one you purchased for 19 and then you netted right around 5 or 6. So what did your second deal look like and what is your third one looking like?
Hmm. Okay. So the second one, that was just an assignment. And so that one was same thing. I can't get too crazy into it because I do have a partner on that one. So
Sure, yeah.
but that house it would have had a after repair value of 315,
Hmm.
and it was pretty much there. Like this house didn't need basically any work at all. So that one got on contract at 240 and then listed it for 300, and then it ended up selling for 295.
So it's around 55K before any closing costs.
Yes.
And then I assume with your partner, you're like splitting it somewhere around 50-50-ish.
Yeah, well, that one was actually because that was more of like a mentorship for me. So that one I got
Mm,
the short end of the stick for sure.
I see.
But that's the thing. I'm willing to go out and do that because
But even
that's
looking
what I
at
learned.
those metrics, so I'm just gonna guess and say you profited roughly around 50. So your first one, you had a little over 25% rate of return. This one you bought for 240, profited probably right around 50. So what is that? Isn't that also right around that's 20% return? And what was
Hmm.
the time on that? Like your from start to finish, what was your time on that?
That one was inside 45 days. So I think that one was 41 days.
Wow. And of course,
Hmm.
this one, the dollar figure return is a lot higher just because of the entry price that you got in on. Like the other one only being 19K, you don't really have so much room you can pull from. But once you raise
Hmm.
the purchase price to like the hundreds of thousands, then your return is still very similar, like 20 to 25%. That's fantastic. In under like 41 days? What?
Yeah.
And was that one a fully detached house? What kind of property was that?
Yeah, that was a fully detached house. It was in really good shape. It was actually very new, and it was some people going through a divorce, and they just had to, they were very motivated to get away from each other, I think.
You had
So,
to close that chapter.
yeah,
And then this third deal that you're working on, what does that look like?
this one is just going to be a straight cash deal because it's just a little condo, and we'll see. I'm getting it on contract for 50, but I think I haven't seen enough of it. So there might be a reduction before we actually come to an agreement on that, but it'll just be a cash. And then, like I said, I may just use it for a bit while I'm trying to get my visa and then just use it as a rental on the back end. So it has $1,200 a month is what it'll rent out for. It does have a pretty high HOA fee in that building, which is very common, and everything's got an HOA down there. Some of them are very cheap, but this one's not allowed for short-term rentals, but it'll rent for 1,200. The HOA fee is 550 a month, so that's very, very steep for what
Hmm,
it is.
yeah.
Mhm. So, but it does have an ARV. Like it's a small play. It has an ARV if it was renoed. There's a lot of comps in the exact same building that have sold in the last inside of the last 2 years, and they'll
Condos are
go for
great for
75.
comps. They're like copy and
Yeah,
paste from each other, so it's really easy to target what your competition is, whereas houses are always apples and oranges, even if they're neighbors.
totally. Yeah, it made it very easy. So, I mean, that's a little one. And then I have been building up a lot of momentum. So I have a lot of other contracts out right now, but people don't always just sign.
Hmm.
And people like to do their homework on you too. You send somebody a contract, a purchase agreement, and then they are skeptical. They're all good and they're agreeable verbally with the price, but as soon as they have a contract to sign, then they start asking questions about, am I safe and all that stuff, right? So, which is good because there's a lot of people in the business. Like it's a jungle down there for sure. Where I
So,
think there's a
what
lot of
happens to you if you get a property under contract from a seller, but and you put a deposit down, let's say you put a 5K deposit down, but you aren't able to find a buyer? Like, what does that
Mhm.
look like, and how do you protect yourself from getting trapped into buying a property?
Well, I think if you could you could lose your earnest money for sure. I think if if you don't comp the property right, um, you're not going to be able to assign it to somebody. So I think you just have to make sure that you are, using realtors, using people to make sure that you're not going to hang yourself.
Are you still putting conditions on these offers, or because they're like smaller purchase prices, are they just like straight cash offers?
They're just straight cash offers, and honestly, we make them close, conditional to close of escrow. So
What does that mean? Conditional to close of escrow.
you can just walk like all the way up until the closing date, unless, if they ask for like a 60-day close or something like that, then they probably won't go for that. They would want to amend the contract where there's some sort of stipulation where I can't walk on day 50. You know what I mean? But the ones that are a cash sale, which I hope to be able to do some of these in the future where I can close on a property inside of like, 15 days,
Hmm.
however long it takes to do escrow. Um, those ones that just make them conditional to anything really up until the day it's closed. So,
So are you saying that you have like in my world, like conditions are like a loophole for you to get out scot-free, essentially. So
mhm,
you're saying that you would have a condition on there able for you to walk away like up until pretty much the time of possession and you would be
basically, yeah,
covered?
yeah,
What? And then the only thing that would be in danger would be your earnest money or your deposit money. Is that correct?
yes.
But if you're still conditional when you pull out, you would get your deposit money back, wouldn't you?
Yeah, like I did. So that deal that I was telling you about where I couldn't complete it because I comped it wrong, I was
Hmm.
worried about that. So, but it
Oh,
was no
okay.
issue.
And then escrow. So what does escrow mean? Because that's an American term. We don't really use that in Canada. What is the stage in the process that is escrow?
That's just as soon as you go deal with the title company. So as soon as you open escrow, when you contact the title company and start to get them involved with the contract and changing title over to your name.
So
So
does escrow occur on possession? Is escrow when you remove conditions and then it's technically sold and then you flip into escrow? Like when does escrow start?
well, you could do it right away. I mean, you can start escrow right away. Like myself personally. So like I said, I have a transaction coordinator that she's going to deal with title and all that stuff for me, so I don't have to get into that whole world. And I had this conversation with her the other day, because she takes a deposit. So she's going to charge me a fee every time I bring her a deal to
Hmm.
complete. So I don't really want to get her involved until I do diligence, like having a realtor go evaluate the property for me and even have an inspection. The inspection, not so much, but having it properly evaluated to make sure that I'm not out to lunch. And then
Hmm.
as soon as I confirm that, then I'll get her to open escrow with the title company and start to do all the work of. you know, getting the money over to the seller and then transferring title to me.
Hmm, that is so neat. And why I kind of asked this at the beginning, but this is a very similar process in Canada. So why is it more attractive in the States to you?
Well, I think just the ability to have like the Freedom of Information Act, so the ability to find sellers that are motivated at mass and then to be
Mm,
able to contact them. So that's kind of the thing because
so there's just less red tape in the States when it comes to this process.
yeah, I mean there's whole websites like PropStream that are just dedicated to they're like Zillow or like realtor.ca. You can go on there and put on filters and
Mhm.
find whatever you want in any area. And that, here to find sellers, you can do door knocking, mail campaigns, shotgun marketing. Meta ads is pretty much your best bang for your buck, really. But down there, I mean, you have all those options. You can pull those huge lists of records, give them to cold callers, give them to text companies. Just that's kind of I'd say that's the biggest advantage. But then there's also the range of price. I mean, you can't find properties for, there's properties that you could go buy down there for, 25 grand if you really wanted to, if you wanted to play the penny machines,
Hmm.
you know. Um, and then obviously the tax
Yeah, I
is a
was gonna
lot lower.
ask you
So
what the difference in the tax rates are in Florida versus do you file in BC or Alberta?
I would be filing in BC.
So what's the difference in tax-ish that you're paying in the percentages?
Well, right now, I'm just gonna have to pay tax anyways. But if I was just exclusively working out of Florida, there's corporate tax and then there's federal tax. So I think the federal tax is somewhere around in the 20%,
Hmm.
and then the corporate tax it's below 10. So I don't know the numbers exactly off the top of my head, but at the end of the day, be paying almost half in tax at the end of the day.
I've
So
listened to other podcasts and stuff where they're talking about why these million and billionaires are moving over to Florida to be with their mom or whatever, and so people are calling them out and be like, "No, you're not doing that for family. You're doing that to dodge paying more taxes."
yeah, there is lots of really cool there's a lot of really cool tax code stuff that I've been learning about. Because, I mean, if you're gonna take the risks with your money and invest your money, you should be able to take advantage of those tax
Yeah.
codes. I mean, um, what is the one? I can't remember what it's called right off the top of my head, but you can basically, I can't remember what it's called. But if you buy something, a bigger asset like a apartment building or RV parks are all the rage down there right now. You can write off the amount of depreciation over basically depreciation. I think it's something else to it, but you can basically write off the depreciation for like the first decade in the first year.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's stuff like that that you can do. And I mean, I'm paraphrasing that pretty
Of
loosely,
course.
but
Yeah.
but it's something like that. Like there's lots of cool stuff that you can do.
So you
So
have some play down there that you don't have up here just because the tax codes are different.
I
Now, when it
think so.
comes to tax time, are you going to be filing yourself in both the States and Canada? Do you need to file both in the States and Canada? And or are you hiring a professional to do this, two professionals to do this? What is it going to look like?
Yeah, it's still very confusing to me, but um, basically, I've set myself up where I'm not gonna really have to spend a bunch of money that I make in the US, hopefully. That's the goal is to get the business off the ground. And in the background, I'm working with an immigration lawyer based on the fact that I have a business to get an E2 visa. And then once I have a visa, then the tax implications will be different for me down there personally.
I don't know what an E2 visa is. How does that work? Because you wouldn't be a citizen. That means you'd be like pretty much a guest down there, like a registered guest in the States, right?
Yeah, that's right. So it's a 5-year term that you get with that visa, and it's a business visa. So the rules are you have to put $100,000 at risk is the term they use, and then that $100,000 is pretty loose. Like they leave it. There's no solid number so that they can kind of pick and choose still, the way I understand it. And so that at-risk money would be, any costs associated with running your business, starting your business, and then, in a business like real estate, dealing with title companies, agents, um, all that stuff.
So that
So
$100,000, like, do you mean that you would need at least $100,000 invested in the States, or you have spent and like you don't have $100,000 anymore because you've paid for these expenses? Is that what you mean, the second one?
yeah, I think yeah, you have to have $100,000 invested. That's how I understand it.
Hmm.
If you were to start a construction company, you would need to have gone and bought $100,000 worth of equipment, or maybe leased $100,000 worth of equipment, or something like that.
So they want to make sure that you have skin in the American market before
Hmm.
you're allowed to be like a long-term guest.
Yeah. And then this is a lot of paraphrasing too from people that I know that I'm following that are doing this. Actual conversations that I've had with my immigration lawyer haven't really got that far yet. So he's just been telling me just get a couple deals first. You
Hmm.
have to do more than one because your first one is just considered you bought a house in the US. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And secondly, just rental property doesn't cut it either. You can't just buy $100,000 worth of rental property, or everybody would have an E2 visa. It has to be an actual functioning business that's creating revenue. And you
Like
don't
an
have to
active
hire.
business. Yeah.
Yeah. They do have there's a number 3 to 5 employees. It has to support 3 to 5 employees, but it doesn't mean that you have to hire them. That can be through, if you're running a flip company, then you're hiring contractors and
Hmm.
all kinds of stuff. Like I don't know if it's a shoe in, but um, yeah.
Very neat. Well, I think that's all my questions for you. Do you have any final words of wisdom for anybody that would be interested in doing this themselves?
Yeah, well, I think if you are considering doing it, just to make sure that you go and find somebody else who is doing it and make sure that you have somebody to mentor you through it, because I didn't make all this stuff up, and it's pretty clear that I'm not a total expert at all of this yet, but I've definitely had some guidance and some really strong mentorship from other people. And then we kind of touched on it. Um, the biggest thing that you can do is create or get involved in networks of people, groups of people down there, and start like, you don't want to try to do it on your own. You
Mhm.
have to, yeah, get some
Isn't it
mentorship.
funny that it always comes down to relationships, no matter what industry you're in?
It is, yeah,
Always comes down to relationships. I do want to
yeah,
say, just like I told you this over the phone the other day, but congratulations. Like as soon as you like figured out you didn't want to go in the multifamily route, you're like, no, I'm gonna go this route. And then you actually did it like immediately after. I think right after that deal fell through, that's when you went for like you're like, screw it, I'm just gonna go drive down to the States and clear my mind and all of that. And then you pulled the trigger on it and you've done a couple deals now already. And I just think
yeah.
that's really impressive. The fact that you've done it successfully is extra impressive, but the fact that you're like, hey, you know what? This doesn't feel right to me. I need to get out of what I'm currently doing. I need to get some action going and actually make this feel good for me to do and make this viable. And then you did it. You did the research, you put your money on the line, bought that first property in cash, and still $19,000 American. I just think that's very impressive. And I do want to have you back on the show in a little bit of time so that we can talk about obviously you're going to be scaling. You've already scaled with these three transactions that we've talked about. So we'll have you here as a newbie in this interview, and then we'll have you back later on and see how your business progresses and additional stuff that you've learned and you want to share with people.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure it seems like I learn something seriously new every day. So I'm sure I'll have lots more stuff to talk about.
That's so awesome. Yeah, and I'm excited to see what your journey looks like too. Now, if people are wanting to reach out to you, where can they stalk you online?
Instagram and Facebook is the two spots that I am online for sure. Yeah,
Perfect. I'll have that linked in the description down below.
cool.
Awesome. Well, that is everything. So thank you so much for your time, Luke. That was so lovely, and I definitely learned a lot. Like, whoa, look at you go.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if it works out or not.
I'm rooting for you, always.
Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Okay.